Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
Broward County similarly only expelled about 8 during a 5-year period. And here in Sarasota County, it was well over 350.
This is EWA Radio, and I'm Public Editor Emily Richmond. Researchers with organizations like the Civil Rights Project at UCLA have uncovered startling disparities in how discipline is meted out in the nation's public schools. We're also finding that those punishments are disproportionately keeping students of color out of the classroom. In Florida, the Sarasota Herald-Tribune decided to take a closer look at the Sunshine State's numbers, and the picture painted in a remarkable news series isn't pretty. Joining us to talk about the newspaper's project is education reporter Shelby Webb. She joins us from her newsroom in Sarasota. Shelby, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having Emily.
It's great to have you. So first of all, this is a massive undertaking. Let's just start right at the top. How much time went into this project, and when did you start?
Sure. Well, it took about 6 months, and I actually first started sort of looking at some of the data when I was at EWA's Diving into Data seminar last year at Columbia University. And I sort of thought, I always saw on all of our agendas that there were a lot of recommended expulsion orders, but I didn't realize that we were such an anomaly in the state until I really started crunching the numbers and realizing that, districts like Miami-Dade, the nation's 4th largest school district, hasn't expelled a single student since 2010, 2011. Broward County similarly only expelled about 8 during a 5-year period. And here in Sarasota County, it was well over 350.
You uncovered that in Sarasota, Florida, that they had the second highest rate of expulsions in the state. And you brought this to the attention of the school board members who told you they were surprised. So were you surprised that they were surprised?
I was shocked, actually. I mean, they had to vote for every single one of these expulsions on their consent agendas. And the fact of the matter is, the majority of them said they never really read the recommended expulsion orders that detailed what each student did, how long they'd be expelled for, whether or not they'd received services or anything like that.
For people who follow school boards, who have been to a school board meeting, we've all seen this on what's called the consent agenda, which is when school district staff does the legwork and they bring it to the school board essentially for a rubber stamp. And you found that in a matter of 30 seconds, 11 students could be expelled.
Yeah, or as many as 14 have been expelled in, sort of one fell swoop.
That might shock some people that they actually told you they did not read the file.
Absolutely. I mean, it's sort of ironic because a lot of them say that they have brought up concerns about heavy-handed discipline in Sarasota County before, but it never really went anywhere. But at the same time, they never pulled an expulsion off and discussed it as new business, even though the county just north of us, Manatee County, would almost always, all of their expulsions were on new business. They were able to be discussed.
Do you have any sense of how this aggressive suspension or expulsion rate might have been influencing things like overall test scores for a school or a district's graduation rates?
Sure. Well, there's no way that you can always say, correlation doesn't always equal causation, but we have seen graduation rates slip a little bit here in Sarasota County. May or may not be related to the discipline again. But I mean, research shows over and over again that, if you're suspended out of school or expelled, you're much more likely to drop out. You're much more likely to repeat a grade level. About 35% of kids who are out of school suspended or expelled repeat a grade level, whereas only about 5% of regular students do. So it definitely creates a burden both on the student because they can get behind. I mean, if you think about it, you're out of school suspended, you might miss a final. If you're expelled, you could miss classes for up to 2 years.
And that's a long time to be out of school. And of course, there's also research showing that students who are suspended or expelled could be as much as 3 times more likely as their peers to come in contact with the juvenile justice system as early as the next year. I think that's a startling statistic, Shelby.
Absolutely. And it really sort of shifts the burden of trying to prepare these kids for the real world or trying to at least remedy their misbehavior from the school environment into the neighborhoods, into the communities, and onto law enforcement. And it really creates a lot of unintended consequences. I mean, so many kids will be expelled and they won't come back. And, what do then? They don't have a GED. They don't have a high school education. They're just sort of floating around the community.
We should make clear here, of course, that teachers and administrators are not necessarily suspending or expelling students because they like to do it. And sometimes it may be the only tool they have available to keep calm in a school or to protect themselves. Can you talk a little bit about the response you've had from the teachers union?
They obviously represent some teachers who have have been even injured by students. They say, increasingly students are more and more disruptive, that they come from more and more troubling home backgrounds. And it almost puts this burden on a teacher where not only do they have to teach, they have to almost be a surrogate mom sometimes, or they have to be, a therapist, a psychologist, a social worker, all of these extra responsibilities on them. But a lot of this is because, at least in Florida, state funding was cut drastically back in about 2011. And at least in Sarasota County, that led to the closure of several alternative schools and other support services that would help teachers, like social workers, school psychologists, all that stuff. And so here we only had one alternative school left, and it quickly became a revolving door because, every time the district wanted to expel them or anything like that, they try to put them in the alternative school. But, you talk out of class or something there, or you just step out of line once and they'll expel you again.
We're talking with Shelby Webb of the Sarasota Herald-Tribune about a new series examining high expulsion and suspension rates in some of Florida's school districts and the impact that's having on students and communities. Don't miss an episode of EWA Radio. You never have to. Look for us on your favorite podcast app. You can also subscribe via iTunes, and don't forget to rate us on iTunes. Your feedback will help us grow. Shelby, there's some great voices in your reporting, especially Infinity Moreland. She's sort of a centerpiece for you here. She's a high school student whose academic career really went off track after she was expelled under a zero-tolerance policy for fighting, even though the video of the incident showed she was actually defending herself when she was attacked by another girl. What's going on with Infinity now? Where is she?
Infinity is getting ready to graduate actually next week from Northport High School. She actually missed out on at least 12 college credits her junior year, the year that she was expelled. She was in dual enrollment courses, AP courses. She was a star on the school basketball team. I mean, she was just really good student. And then the video actually shows her walking away from a fight and then someone coming up from behind her and then punching her in the face, ends up defending herself. And you were right, under the zero tolerance policy, the school district said that self-defense was not a defense, basically, for hitting someone else, and that it was still expellable.
Talking to teens can be one of the hardest things, I think, for a reporter to do. What did you learn during this project about interviewing children and young adults?
It was really hard. I actually showed up to Infinity's house. That's the first time I met her. I was able to get her address from a recommended expulsion order that the district actually failed to redact. I went to her house, and the most important thing is just talk to them like you would want to be talked to. I mean, wasn't trying to be like, oh, I heard you were expelled. That's so lame. Not trying to put on some voice or some act, but just, I think it really sucks you got expelled. Like, it seems sort of ridiculous. Tell me about what happened.
That kind of just straightforward honesty is really important, obviously, in connecting with students and young adults. What did you tell the parents in terms of helping them to understand how widely this was going to be read and the information about their children's discipline records was going to be public?
Well, they were actually pretty willing about it. I think they both recognized, because they actually got an attorney involved with their expulsion hearing, and they both sort of recognized that if it could happen to Infinity, it could happen to anyone. And so they really took the stance of more wanting to make sure that this didn't happen again. And I told them flat out, I'm like, anyone searches Infinity's name on the internet, they're going to see this. This might be one of the first things that pops up. After it came out, I think they really seemed to enjoy it, the story.
What are some success stories that are out there that you found that people should be looking to as ways to actually reduce these expulsion and suspension rates?
There's probably two programs I would point to. There's YUP down in Miami-Dade, which is a youth engagement program. And basically, they're in the middle schools that used to have the highest out-of-school suspension rate in the district. And what they do is they have coordinators there who identify maybe about 30 kids who are sort of chronically in the principal's office or the assistant principal's office, who are sort of known as the quote-unquote troublemakers. And what they do is they sort of redirect their energy from, sort of goofing off in class to doing civic engagement projects. So I was speaking to one of the counselors, and she said one of the students was clearly high on marijuana when they met. And it turns out that he was actually a few weeks earlier was targeted by a gang almost in a drive-by. They stopped him on his way when he was walking to school, pulled out guns, and asked him what his affiliation was. Luckily, he was able to get out of that, but he had to sit through classes for the whole rest of the day, which is just almost unbelievable, if you're a kid that age. They worked on a project to get kids who live within 2 miles of the school, because the school bus won't pick up there, to get them safe transportation to Homestead Middle School in Miami-Dade County. And the same student who this coordinator said was high on marijuana the first time she met him, a few months ago was actually awarded a civic engagement award from the city commission down there. So that's pretty impactful.
And we know, of course, there are some examples of things that are working in other states that Florida and other places are trying to copy, things like restorative justice, for example, where students try to talk through their problems. But we also know that those things cost a lot of time and money. Do you get a sense that there's a disparity in how Florida districts are prioritizing these things? Is Sarasota going to change anything that it's done now, maybe as a result of some of this reporting?
Well, it's certainly not surprising that a lot of districts in Florida don't prioritize it, because Florida is 48th in the country when it comes to per student funding from the state. That puts districts in a really hard situation about, do I spend money on more social workers and discipline things, or do I spend it on things like building a new school or some other position that could better help students? There's a lot of really difficult budget questions here. And so, hopefully, I've heard people express that, they hope to see change. There's a lot of community groups here that are stepping up and trying to put forward grants and other things to sort of shift the paradigm here. But we'll see what happens as time progresses.
Shelby, you mentioned, of course, at the top of the show, and we certainly appreciate that you attended our Diving into Data workshop. What are some story ideas you might have for a reporter who may be looking at school discipline issues in their own area? What are some questions you hope they're going to start asking?
Well, I think some really important ones, especially with the use of law enforcement in local schools, the number of school-related arrests or just general youth arrests within your school district. I think also, the disproportionate amount of Black students who are being either out of school suspended, expelled, or any sort of exclusionary discipline. It's probably in every single district in the country. I wouldn't be surprised.
So Shelby, obviously a project of this scale and scope, you said it was 6 months. How do you convince an editor to make that kind of an investment of the time and resources? What kind of case did you make?
I was still definitely writing dailies during that whole 6-month period. The whole key was just being able to write out my own schedule and be like, look, this week I will write you 10 dailies. It'll be awesome. And then the next week, let me work on my project. Let me get some stuff done. Let me go down to Miami-Dade and Fort Lauderdale and do some reporting down there. And we were able to strike a pretty good balance of, between covering dailies and letting me have some time on my project. At the same time, breaking news always sort of trumps everything. So even if it was a project week and, test scores came out or something like that, I was quickly reassigned.
So you just got to make the most of the time you have, huh, Shelby?
Yes.
Shelby, I want to congratulate you on another thing. You are the very first former New to the Beat rookie to appear on EWA Radio. So congratulations for that honor. For listeners out there, New to the Beat is a mentoring program we do for reporters with fewer than 2 years of experience on the education beat. Shelby qualified for the program last year, and we are very, very proud of your work, Shelby. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much.
And thank you, everybody. If there's an education story you'd like to know more about, you can send your suggestions to radio@ewa.org. We're also gearing up for our second annual EWA Summer Reading List. We'd like to hear your suggestions of books and authors to feature this time around. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you soon.
County. This is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too, because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Charlotte County COPWATCH with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave let's say actually yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But you know, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, you know, at least I can do it. You know, 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, you know, if I got, you know, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. You know, 47,000 of you so far right now. You know, $1 a day. I mean, $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.